Well, first off, hello and welcome everyone to our webinar today, hosted by Sydney Technology Solutions. My name is Andrew, and I'm going to be taking you through our little demo that we have prepared here for you today. It's going to take a quick look at a few different Excel tricks and hopefully give you a little bit more out of the program. Now, a lot of the things we're going to be looking at today, it's going to be more aimed at someone who is more of a beginner level with Excel, but even if you've been using Excel for a couple years now, you may even find a better or quicker way to do some of the common stuff that you're already doing every day. So without dragging out the introduction too long, as most webinars tend to do, let's quickly look at a few points we're going to be discussing today, just to give you a sort of outline of what's actually going to be in the demo. The first thing we'll look at today in Excel is going to be keeping those workbooks better organized. For this one, I'll show you a few quick things you can do with the data validation options to keep your spreadsheets in a better order. Briefly, we'll touch on adding drop-down selections in your columns, other ways that you can restrict input on those columns, and using some basic formulas to try and ensure all those values always match up. We'll also take a look today at adding some flair to your spreadsheets. This is going to be some things you can do that'll take those plain, boring-looking sheets and turn them into something that's a little bit better, more suited for presenting at an important meeting or given to a client. Throughout the demo, I'm also going to be showing you a couple easy shortcuts to a lot of the more repetitive tasks that we're going to be running through. When one of these come up, I'll try and do my best to try and pause and let you know specifically what shortcuts I'm using, or even explain why that particular way I'm doing something might be better for you. And the last thing we're going to look at today is just streamlining some basic formulas. This is just going to be some of the formulas you're using every day, a couple different ways you can do it that may be a little bit quicker for you. So with all that now out of the way, let's switch straight over here into our demo workbook for today and take a look at what we're going to be doing. I'll just mention quickly that throughout the presentation today, you're going to notice some notations appearing at the bottom of the screen like you do there. These are just some quick notes about what I'm doing on screen, so if you have your notepad out, these just might be the things you want to jot down. So looking at our first spreadsheet for today, we'll notice we have what looks like a basic sales table from our imaginary dealership. You see the dates of the sales, the office that made the sale, the representative who did it, what they sold, how many, what each of those units cost, and then what the total value is. So right away, you'll notice it's a pretty basic table. There's not really a lot of detail here. There's also not really any protections in place to prevent any of these fields from going astray, or maybe somebody making an input mistake when they go to type it in. So the first thing let's look at is maybe just adding, instead of manual entering in all these fields, let's change these to maybe drop-down selections so we can specify the certain fields that they actually want to select. So all we have to do for this is we're basically just going to start a new column. We'll start off by listing off all of our different offices in this column. So we have one for East, one for Central, and one for West. So basically, we're just compiling a list of all the values that we want to input to that column. So the only things people can put in there are those very values that we're entering now. I'll just also mention, for the sake of this demo, I'm doing this all on the same spreadsheet, but to keep your spreadsheets a little bit more clean, what you can actually do is add an additional kind of spreadsheet just for these variables that you're adding in here, where you can reference them from that additional tab without having to clutter up your one page here. So now that we've created our list of offices we have here, what we're going to do is just set a data validation on this B column that we've got here. So I'm going to start by clicking the first column in B, and then I'm going to hold down the Control and Shift key and just press the down arrow. What that's going to do is just jump down to the very bottom of the selection to make sure I get all the values. And if I tap it one more time, it'll actually throw that validation all the way down to the bottom of the notebook. So now that I've got that selected, all I need to do is go up to the Data tab at the top here, and we'll just go ahead and click on the Data Validation option over here. What this will do is open up a new window where we can actually change this first field from Allow down to a List. And then for the list, we can actually specify what values we want in that list. So I'm just going to click on this little button here, which will allow us to drag and drop over the selections. And then I'm just going to pick our 3 offices that we have here, because these are the only options that we want people to be able to select from. So we'll save that, and I'll just go ahead and click OK. And you'll notice that now every field has now changed to a drop-down selection where we can actually specify what we want to pick for the office, and we don't no longer have the option to be able to enter in our own names for the offices here, just to make sure nobody's making any sort of mistakes. So now that we've started locking down the spreadsheet a little bit here using the drop-down boxes, let's take a look at some of these other columns and see what else maybe we can shore up a little bit. So right now we can see that the dates are pretty much all sitting in sequential order, but at the moment there's right now nothing preventing anybody from entering these incorrectly or making an error and putting in a date that's older than the last entry. So what we're going to want to do is look at setting it up so each cell only allows a date that's actually a little bit farther on than the last cell behind it. So for this one, I'm just going to start by selecting the second entry in our date column here. And we'll go up again to the data tab and over to data validation once more. So this time now, where we see the same drop down that we changed to list before, this time I'm just going to say it so it should only allow a date. And now that date should always be greater than, and I'll use this handy selection button here one more time, and we'll tell it that it should always be greater than the first entry. So we'll go ahead and save that now. And we can see that for A3, we should only allow a date that's greater than A2, so the cell right before it. Okay, so now that we've done that, that's great. We can just try, entering a date here that's earlier than before, and we should get a validation error. But now we'll notice we still haven't shored up these others. They still allow us to put in an incorrect value. So what we're going to want to do is just go to the tab where we set that validation initially, and I'm just going to press Control-C on the keyboard to copy that to the clipboard. Now all I'm going to do here is just go to the next cell below, and then what I did before, I'm going to hold down Control and Shift and tap that down arrow twice, and I'm just going to hit now Control-Alt-V to do a special paste. So now instead of pasting the actual value, all I actually want to paste here is the validation. So I'm just going to select that here, and we'll click OK. And now what that should do is every cell down here should now be locked down where it'll only allow a date that's actually before the previous one. So if I just try this one as a test, we'll notice that now it comes up with a validation. And that'll actually go down all the way to the bottom of the page, following the one cell above it. Okay, so now that we have our dates going down in descending order, and we also have our drop-down boxes, just looking over at the other columns here, it looks like our total column may have some issues as well. It looks like somebody forgot to manually input their calculation for what the total sale amount was. So if we take a look, we can see right now it's pretty much just all manual entry where somebody's done the calculation with the calculator and put in what their final result was. So there's nothing actually verifying those numbers or telling us that they're actually correct. So what we're going to do is just a really quick change. It's a very basic formula for multiplying other cells. We're just going to go up to the first cell in the row here, and we'll just press the equal sign, which tells Excel we want to start a formula. And I'm just going to type in the name of the two cells that I want to multiply. So first one, if we look over, it's E2, so I'll type E2. And then we'll just use our asterisk sign, which indicates we want to multiply. And we'll just times that by the second cell, which is F2 here. So type in F2. And now if we hit Enter, we'll notice we have the same number, but if we look, there's actually a formula that's doing the calculation right inside of the spreadsheet. So now all we need to do, just like with the date tab there, we'll just copy this to our clipboard with Control-C, and then we'll go down to the next cell in the column here, and we'll go Control-Shift and use our down arrow to jump straight down to the bottom of the column here. And then just like before, to do a special paste, I'm just going to go Control-Alt-V, and this time, instead of selecting the validation, I'm just going to click Formulas here. And what this will do, if I click OK, is just change all of these calculations. They'll all be the same, but you'll notice that each one now is actually performing the validation or the calculation for us right inside the sheet. And that one that was missed before has actually filled itself in now with the correct value, so that we know these are always going to be correct. So with those changes now our sheet is looking a little bit better, a little bit more secure, but there's still a few things that we could do here to clean it up a little bit more. One major problem I can see right now at the moment is our costs and our totals, which are supposed to be dollar amounts, at the moment are kind of just showing the actual calculation. So we've got some with single decimals or some which are just showing the whole number with no cents actually displayed. So real quick one here. I'm just going to start by selecting the two columns that I want to make the changes on first. So we're going to turn these into dollar values. I'll do that with the same Control-Shift and the arrow keys to select the group. And then just going from the top here, if we go back to the Home tab, we'll notice that there's this area here for number. What this does will actually let us set a certain type of number, so a decimal or percentage, and it'll make it so Excel will always expect that sort of input to that column. So all I'm going to do is go to the top here. You can either just go ahead and click this here, and it'll go ahead and change them straight over to dollars. Or I can go back. By the way, Control-Z is just a quick way to flip back and revert whatever your last change was, instead of having to go all the way up here and go ahead and click on the back arrows. What I'll do is just show you the little list here where you can see some of the different options that are actually available. There's quite a few if you want to play with it, depending on what kind of data that you're actually working with. But I'm just going to click on currency, and straight away you'll notice that these are now all moved over to 2 decimal places, and there's also now showing a dollar sign indicating that it's a dollar amount. So that's a real quick one, but definitely something that you want to look at doing on any sort of percentage column or something that you're concerned about, always making it clear what type of data it is that you're looking at. Another quick thing that we might want to do here, just looking at the sheet, say if we're going to be presenting this to a client or something, maybe we just want to outline which offices we're, say, making the most sales here, or maybe we just want to color code the different offices as we're entering them in automatically. We can do this one using the conditional formatting option. Again, super easy to do. We'll just start by selecting the whole column, Control-Shift and down arrow. And then I'm just going to go up to the top, also under the Home tab here, and go to this conditional formatting area. So there's a whole bunch of different options you'll notice here again. They're all predefined rules where you can pick one that works for you and it'll throw in there. But for the sake of the demo here, I'll just go down to New Rule. And in the new rule for our formatting, we want to format only cells that contain, and we're going to tell it that we want specific text. So any cells that contain specific text, and I could either type in the name of the office that I want here, but I'm just going to use that handy cell selection button again, just to make sure it's a good way that you never make any spelling errors or anything like that. So I'll go over and let's just say that we want to highlight all of the central sales for the whole column there. So I'll just go ahead and save the selection of central, and we'll just say that we'll go down to the format here, and anytime that central comes up, we want the cell to actually fill in with a color here. So I'll just go ahead, pick a color here, just a nice light orange. And as soon as I click OK here, we should notice that every cell now has switched over to that color we selected. And also, if we go ahead and pick central now, we'll notice it automatically actually colors in that cell every time that we select it. So that'll happen all the way down the page, or as far as you select it, copy and paste it over there. With color coding out of the way now, we definitely have made some progress here. It's looking a lot better. A few little things still bothering me here. One thing I noticed, somewhere along the lines, these row widths actually got contorted a little bit. They're not all matching up. So instead of trying to go through here and adjust each one manually or setting a value, and they're never quite right, all I'm going to do is just a really quick trick. I'm just going to press Control-A to select the entire thing. And then all I'm going to do is just go all the way up here to the top underneath the Home tab where it says Format under the Cells area. And there's just this option here for Auto Fit Row Height. And what this is going to do is just all in one click, it's going to automatically resize all of those fields so they're all now actually matching up and exactly the same. So it looks a lot better, a lot easier than trying to go through one by one and actually manually resize all of those. So we're definitely getting there now, but let's say if we want to take this data now and actually maybe put it on a flyer or put it on something that we can pass off to our sales team to kind of give them an update on what's actually going on here. So A lot of things that we can actually do, we can start going through here and adding some color and some borders. We'll touch on some of those things, but for people like me who kind of just want a quickest possible way to kind of make it a little bit prettier, something that you can show off to somebody, they have the style formatting built right into the program here. So again, super easy to do. I'm just going to go ahead and select the whole thing with my Control and Shift and my arrows. We've got our table selected now, so I'm just going to go all the way up to the top, again under the Home tab. Probably seen it sitting in the middle here, this Format as a Table option. What this does, it actually has a whole bunch of predefined colored table settings sitting here. So all we have to do is actually just click on one, and we'll just confirm that this is the selection that we want to use for the table. And if we click OK now, you'll notice that automatically it's just color-coded everything in there, gave it into a nice looking table that's quite easy to do whatever you want with now. And if we don't like that one, or we decide we want something else, we'll just do that Control-Z to jump back, and we'll just do the same thing again and maybe pick a different one. Maybe one of these lighter ones will be better for our cause here. So one thing to remember when you're adding color on a sheet, less is always more. That's really not the greatest, but for our sake, that should do it for now. So with that nice colored table now in hand, most people may even just call it quits there and print it off. And you notice that actually doesn't look too bad. But what we can do, very simple step with not a lot of work involved, again, keeping with the whole speed of doing this, would just be, let's go ahead and select all of that table, and we'll throw it on our clipboard. So we're just going to press Control-C to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up a piece of company letterhead in Word here. So it's just a regular document. Most people have, say, sales templates, anything that has your logo on already. And I'm just going to go ahead and click Paste. And now what will happen is it'll actually just throw the Excel sheet right onto the Word document here for us. So without having to do anything else, we now have a company branded spreadsheet. And then we can easily just add a title right to the top here. So again, not a lot of work done there, but we've actually managed to brand a spreadsheet and give it something that we could print off and even hand around the office here, and it'd look a lot more professional than just maybe the plain spreadsheet there. So we go to Control-P, we can see this now as a company logo, our title, and our beautiful spreadsheet that's actually sitting there right now. So again, that's really quick option if we want to do this without doing too much work. We'll just go back and I'll show you maybe one other thing here that we can do to kind of spice it up here, something if you're going to be handing it off to one of your clients, or even giving it to anybody inside of your own business there. Now, still sticking with that colored template table we have there, a few other quick tricks that we can do here to spice it up a little bit. Maybe on our total column here, let's add a little bit of extra graphics to it. So what we're going to do, I'll select the whole column again there, and we'll go up to this conditional formatting one more time. Instead of creating a new rule though, I'm going to use one of these predefined data bar sets. So what this is going to do, it's basically going to add a little gradient fill here, kind of corresponding to how much that value is. It just kind of gives it a little bit of flair there, you'll notice now. It definitely looks a lot more flashy. Something else we may just want to change here, just looking at our headers running across the top column here. Maybe we'll just take these and we'll use this angle counterclockwise button here. We'll actually turn all of the letters over here. So if we give the column a little bit more space, we should see we now actually have a nice angled table display here. And we can even go a step farther with that and kind of take these, and we'll just fill these in as well with that same kind of dark green color. So now we've got a spreadsheet. Definitely looks a lot better than it did before here. We can still do a lot more to shore it up though here. I think maybe we'll try one or two other things here. Like maybe let's try adding a couple pivot tables just to kind of show us some of the running totals from all of our data in the table here. So another very easy thing to do here, I'm just going to click where I want that, approximately where I want that table to fall in here. I'm just going to go up to the Insert tab at the top. And then under the table section, you'll see that we have an option for pivot table. If I click on that here, it's just going to come up and it's going to ask me what data I want to use for our table. So I'm just going to click our nice little selection button, and I'll go ahead and tell it that we just want to use the entire table's data here to actually generate our pivot table. So go ahead and save that. And it's just asking us if we want to add it onto the same worksheet. So that's great. We want it right there. We'll click OK. And now straight away, you can see it's actually thrown a new table right into our spreadsheet here. But there's no data showing up yet. So all we have to really do for this is if you look over on the right-hand side, you'll notice that we have all of the different data fields from our table actually showing up already. So pretty much we just need to select what we want to display here. So maybe the first one we'll do team members and the total amount of units each team member actually sold. Just so you know, very simple data here. Now we can see it's actually added up every single row inside of the table for that employee, and it's giving us kind of an overview of all the totals at once without having to do too much work there. While we're at it, maybe let's just go ahead and add a second pivot table here, maybe for some of the data just about the different offices specifically. So again, just going to go Insert Pivot Table, and we'll just tell it for the range as well. We want to use our whole table data. So go ahead and save that, and we want to throw it into the same worksheet again. So now maybe with this one, what we're going to do here, we'll just go over and we'll select Office and Total. So now you can see we've got two different tables here. One that's showing us, which team is selling the most units, and which office is actually making the highest amount of sale volume here with as far as a dollar amount goes. So same problem we had over there, though. You notice these aren't actually coming up by default as numbers. So we can just kind of go back here, change this one over to currency as well. And then a couple other things to fix up here. Obviously, we need to change our column headers. So we'll just go ahead and switch these over to the names of the ones inside of there. The other thing, it's all personal preference here, but maybe I'm just going to color these, approximately the same kind of green that we've been doing here, just for the sake of, keeping everything fairly similar. Pivot tables are now in. So one other quick thing we can do is let's just add a little star rating for each employee here. So again, we'll just select them all. We'll go up to our conditional formatting like we did before. And if we check under icon sets, you see we've got a whole bunch of different sets that you could maybe pick one that's appropriate for you. But just for the sake of this, we'll go ahead and we'll just give them a kind of a bar rating here so we can see who's doing the bulk of the sales. And we'll do the same thing here with the bottom column. This one, as there's only 3, we'll just go ahead and they've got a cool one here with the kind of traffic lights. We'll go ahead and just pick one of these. And now straight away, you can see we've got our professional looking spreadsheet. We've got our pivot tables here that show us all of our running data. I mean, there's endless things. You could sit here all day doing it, but I would say this is a pretty good looking sheet compared to where we started with it earlier. And one last thing I may even add in here is maybe even just a nice bar graph that kind of shows our sales over the total amount of dates here. So just like I did before, quickly go up to the insert here. Over here, you'll see there's a whole bunch of different charts that we can add in here. I'm going to opt just for a kind of basic, very basic bar graph here. I'm just going to drag this into about the approximate position where you want it. So say that's good enough. And we'll resize it just to keep it in line with the rest of our pivot tables here. So if I just right click on this now, I can go over to Select Data. And now it's just going to ask me what I actually want to use inside of my chart. So I know that I want the date column here. So I'll go ahead and select date. And then I'm also going to go ahead and select the total sales column here. So what this should actually do now is if I click OK, you notice that straight away it's just given me a basic graph here with a range of dates across the bottom and then with the sales running up the side, which is perfectly fine for our purposes. We can do a little bit farther with this here by kind of formatting the chart area a little bit. So to do this, I'll just click on the chart, and then you'll see immediately over on the right here, you've got options for fill and border. So kind of sticking with the same style of our spreadsheet so far, I'm just going to go for a gradient fill here, and we'll just select the same kind of green that we were using before. So you notice there's all sorts of things that you can tweak here if you want to sit all day. You can make some really beautiful charts and graphs, but just for our purposes here, we'll go ahead and rename this to maybe sales by date. And now the last thing we could do with the chart is maybe let's even go ahead and we'll add a little border to it or something like that. So just add a little black border. Maybe we can even just make it make it a little transparent. But yeah, so as you can see, there's a number of things that you could do there, but I'd say this is starting to look pretty beautiful now. I think the last thing for us to do now is maybe add a company logo onto this, and then let's print it off. So to do this, I'm going to need a little bit of space at the top here. So we'll start by inserting a row, and then instead of going through that again, I'm just going to tap F4 on my keyboard a couple of times. Now what that does is it just repeats the last action that you did in Excel, so it'll save you a lot of time if you're doing something that requires you continually going through a right-click menu. So now that we've got a little space up here, just go ahead and we'll insert our logo picture that we've got ready here. And now that's thrown it inside of our spreadsheet, which is great. Just go ahead and position that approximately where we want it. And now, because our spreadsheet is a little bit cluttered here with these cell references, we either just delete these, or what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to highlight the entire area that we actually want to print out. If we go to the top here, underneath the page layout tab, there's just this little print area drop down. If we click on set print area, what that'll do is when we go to print, it'll tell Excel just to print this area with the table and the images, and it'll actually leave out the bit with the office here. Obviously, if we wanted to add, some information about, the spreadsheet, the date, title, anything like that, that's all doable. But for this sake, I think we are about done with this sheet. So I'm just going to press Control P and get a little preview here, and you can see this is miles away from the simple sales spreadsheet that we started out with, and something that you could be a little bit more proud to look at or give to one of your clients. Well, we're about out of time for this webinar here, but let's just do a quick review on some of the points that we covered today, just to kind of sum up everything that we learned. The first one that we took a look at today was the data validation stuff. So this was everything from restricting the columns to different values to setting up those nifty little drop-down selections I showed you by referencing another list of cells, either on the same sheet or another workbook even. After that, we moved briefly into some conditional formatting stuff. That was color coding the different cells and also adding a lot of that flair I showed you with the icon sets and the gradient bars. After we did the conditional formatting stuff, we also looked briefly at a couple of the table and graph settings. This was using some of those pre-made table layouts to make those really fast and colorful tables, adding those simple bar graphs there that we showed the kind of yearly sales throughout the period of dates, and also those really cool pivot tables that kind of let you summarize or average or do all sorts of different things kind of separate to your spreadsheet. And finally, some of the keyboard shortcuts we looked at today. If you haven't already, definitely worth remembering all of these ones here. So I hope you've enjoyed our little webinar here today on Excel. Obviously, we're only just scratching the surface on a lot of the things that we talked about today, but hopefully you at least have a little better understanding than when you started today, or maybe even you just picked up a trick or two that you can use going forward. If you'd like some more information about Sydney Tech or learn about some of the free training and other webinars we have available, you can drop by our website at www.sydneytech.com.au, or as I put in the video earlier there, just send us any of your questions or comments straight to webinars@sydneytech.com.au. Hope to see you all again at our next webinar coming up. Also stay tuned, we've got new tech tip videos that are coming out every week. Once again, my name was Andrew, and thanks everybody for attending today. Hope to speak to you all soon. Thanks.